Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, right at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, I am on time, and I was actually on earlier today. So look at me go 2 times in one day, not playing games. And why? Because today is tax day. Yes, it is. And I did not do my taxes, so I am behind. But that's fine. That's besides the point. Yes, I will. I'll pay the fees and fines like I do every damn year. Anyway, it's not the point that I was bringing up. I'm just saying that today is tax day. And not that they're not getting taxes from us all the time, because they are all the time. But I thought because we talk all the time about this, about being a libertarian, about taxation, all those things, I thought today would be a good day to kind of talk about actually taxes, that kind of thing. And I found a video that actually asks a question: do we need taxes? And it's not like it's a libertarian thing. It isn't. And I thought we could talk through this because, if you're libertarian, you always hear the phrase taxation is theft. That's a common phrase used by many libertarians. I don't use that one, in case you guys didn't notice. I have a nuance to it. I say taxation is extortion. What's the difference? You might go, same thing, but tomato. Nah, difference. If I just rob you, right? I just go over to John and I just take his wallet. That's theft. But I'm not doing that. I'm going over to John and I'm saying, John, I want you to buy this bomb. John goes, I don't want to buy this bomb. Yeah, you got to buy the bomb now. Well, I don't want to buy the bomb. Buy the bomb or I'm going to put you in jail. Okay, fine. I'll buy the bomb. That's taxes, right? So I didn't really, I took it, but it's not theft. You get something, right? If I just steal his wallet, then he got nothing. But if I give him a bomb, he did get something. He just didn't want it. So that's extortion, right? Do as I say and give me the money and I'll give you something. I'm going to give you a bad school, but I don't want the bad school. I know, but you got to buy the bad school. I don't want the bad school. I didn't go to school. Buy the bad school and put you in jail. Fine, I'll buy the bad school. That's what taxes is, right? So you do get something. You get a crappy school you don't use, but it's not nothing. You do have it. You get a bomb that you'll blow up somebody in the Middle East or in Ukraine or whatever. You get that. So you do get something is all I'm saying. That is something. And coming in right on time is the man Pete. Perfect timing on tax day. The debt, 36 trillion, 214 billion, 966 million, 389,282.11. Well, there we go. Pete says, if taxation of 100% of your income is slavery, at what percentage is it not? That's a good question. That's a good question. We can make a number, I guess, right? We can make a number. And the thing about it is, they have made a number, right? They have. The number hasn't made before. The Catholic Church made the number, and their number is 10%. Catholic Church says you're supposed to give 10%. That's not slavery. So according to the Catholic Church, if we follow Catholic Church, I'm not saying you should, but if we do, then 10% is not slavery. That's if we follow the Catholic Church. There we go. See, so someone did say that. There we go. Your number is 10%. Your question is answered. So once it goes to 11, now we got problems. We're now in America, something like 40% or something. So there we go. IC says 10% is the tithe from the Old Testament. Yeah, correct. Yes. But that's true. But I'm pretty sure that if, I may be wrong in this, IC. You can tell me. I'm pretty sure only the Catholic Church tried to institutionalize that. I think that's true, if I'm not mistaken. Andrew says only the Catholic Church doesn't come demanding it with armed agents. Not today, but they kind of used to. They kind of used to. But yes, you're correct, Andrew. Not today, but they kind of used to back in the past. So yes. So anyway, I do appreciate I appreciate tremendously, Pete coming in hot right away, immediately. Liberal lady says, double dose of Larry. It's true. Double dose. So she goes taxation is theft. I like the extortion nuance. I think it's a better story to tell. I think it's funnier. I think people talk about it, and now you go back and forth, right? So I kind of like that. Taxation is theft. You get people to go either yes or no. It's extortion. They start thinking, wait a minute. So yeah, my view. But let me go through this. I think this is an interesting one. I hope it's a good one. I found it. I thought it was interesting, and it should be a really good chat to discuss the whole idea of taxation. And it talks honestly, like, do we actually need it? And it's rare. Most Americans, in fact, I would say probably most people, but surely most Americans think that taxation is required. There's no other answer, and taxes are fine. In fact, even if you look at it, people actually decide that they actually want to be taxed more. Some people do. It's crazy, but it's absolutely true. You can see it. It does happen. So here we go.
In this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes.
Yep.
Neither one is a particularly pleasant topic, but taxes are arguably the lesser evil, so let's focus on them.
I would say yes.
Taxes are an unfortunate reality for most people living and working in the modern world.
That's true. And I think that part is important. And you might go, why is that important? Because it means it's cultural, right? When you even start talking about taxation being theft, it is, to most people, something so foreign, they can't imagine it. They can't imagine it, right? It's so foreign to them, they can't imagine it because the entire world has been and is accustomed to taxation. They see it as the norm, which is why when you see, I talk a lot about adjusting and finding other ways to pay for things other than taxation. And the hardcore libertarians get mad at me. You just gotta, why are they taxing it all? And I'm like, because the world thinks that's the norm, and you're not gonna change the world's norm overnight. You gotta shift the mindset. And that's what I work on often.
We pay them every year, we complain about them,
all day long,
and then we try to forget about them until next year. Yet taxes are also one of the most important elements of any economy around the world. Societies can grow from effective taxation and crumble without it. Taxes are what fund our roads and schools and parks, our military, emergency services, social welfare, and everything else in between.
And that is the problem. In the world today, does taxation have to do that? Must it do all of those things? No. Realistically, to be realistic, it will have to do many of those things. It just has to, because we don't have any other infrastructure right now to do that any other way. But Larry, we got to pay for the military. True. Realistically, there is no realistic way to pay for the military without taxation. Could that happen one day? Sure. At one point, it could happen, but that's not where we are at all, right? There is just no impossible, right? For today, impossible. Could we find other ways of protecting ourselves? Sure. Absolutely, right? There's lots of areas that have private police forces. The wealthy have private police forces, literally, right? The wealthy we saw in California have privatized fire departments. So could it happen? Yes, it is possible. The point is, we as a society believe the only answer is government. And for certain things, that's true, but not for everything. Not for everything.
Services are structural elements of modern society. We wouldn't have these without taxes, and without them...
That's not true. And that's the part that people don't understand. What would happen, and he'll cover this as we walk down this road, I'm sure he will, as what would happen if all of a sudden, our government collapsed, right? If all of a sudden it collapses and now there's no more federal government, would we all of a sudden go, oh, okay, I guess we're all just going to kill each other. It's going to start eating people, right? Is that what's going to happen? I hope not. But no, we would create our own rules and regulations. How do we know this? We saw it happen. We see it happen all the time. When there's chaos, when that happens, people don't automatically start killing each other. They create their own groups. It's what we do. So can we have some? Of course we can. We used to have, mutual aid societies. That was the thing we used to do. A lot of that was based on ethnic groups back in the day, but that was a thing that you would do. I remember my mom was telling me stories after World War II. Many parts in Europe were just devastated, and there was no infrastructure to help people. So very often what would happen is churches were a center, and people would give money to the church, and the church would then give out to people who were hammered. A lot of people who had lost their loved ones in the war, or their loved one hadn't come back from the war yet, or things like that. Churches would often help out handing out food. The church would actually, believe it or not, they would organize the families to get together with other families or to find people. So back in those days, if you came back from the war, right, you came back to France or Germany or Poland or wherever you came back from, and your town was bombed out, or your people had left the area because they were refugees or something, you'd go to a local church if it was still standing. You'd go to church and go, hey, I'm so and so, my family's blah blah blah. Do you know where they are? And that would be the center. So it wouldn't not exist. The problem is, and this is a valid point that I bring up constantly, currently our communities don't have a way for it to exist. We've lost that community. We've lost that institutional knowledge, which is why you hear me constantly talk about community, growing institutional knowledge locally, so that if things collapse, communities can survive. We saw during lockdowns, many can't.
We would have chaos. So, do we need taxes? Well, not necessarily. They serve an important purpose, sure, but there are other systems that could theoretically achieve the same thing. Any alternatives that exist to one of the most important factors in our economies are worth exploring. Even
100%, I agree. Andrew says, the church I volunteer does a food pantry distribution thing. I figure if we have more and more of that, it'll help a lot of people along the road. True. And the other advantage is, if you just get a check from the government, Andrew, so you get a check from the government and you go buy your food, that is not personal. That is not a thing. Like I get my check and I go pay. I deserve it because I'm an American and now I'm entitled and it's my check and go to hell, everybody. Okay. But now instead I have to go to the food pantry. And when I go to the food pantry, I see you there and you're the one handing me out food. I am now beholden to my community, which is a good thing, right? Because now I see who's actually helping me. It's Andrew, right? It's Michael. They're the ones helping me. Okay, I get it. Now I get that. So now hopefully I get myself into a better position. We hope we all get into better positions. If I do, now I want to pay it back. What do? Now I'm going to show up. Because now, Andrew, you're in a bad spot. So now I'm going to support you. You supported me when I was down. I'm going to support you now you're down. And now we're back and forth. This builds community. We don't really have that like we used to, or like some communities did. And I would say there are still some like Amish, some Mennonites, some Mormons who do have that community. Some do, not all, but some still do. So don't get me wrong. There's a price to pay for that too. That's not free, right? You often don't pay as much money in that, but you also have more control and it's voluntary. And that's the difference, right? That's the big difference.
If some of them are a bit out there. You are watching an Economics Explained video made possible by our patrons.
All right, I'm going to go past the patron piece. So, yes. The price of society.
Taxes are what a government uses to raise revenue to fund its expenditures.
Very true. That's absolutely true. So he's right. By the way, before we keep going on this one, guys, click the button known as Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. You know it's going to be a good one. We got a lot of back and forth. Please do that. It does matter. Also, please, if you would, share, repost this someplace, pop this up into a Facebook group, pop this, reshare this on X, whatever the case may be. If you're not following me, please follow. It is important. Why do I say this every single time? Why do I bug you constantly? I bug you constantly because the only way I'm going to get past my banning of the shadow type, the only way I get past that is if enough people are sharing, if enough people are liking. That's the only way I'm going to get past it. So that's why I keep bugging you for it. That's how we have to do it to make this thing grow. Otherwise, I got to keep saying, give me money as a member. And I like that. Please give me money as a member. It does matter because then I can spend more time doing this and less time working so I can do this twice a day like I want to do. I would love to do that. Spend more time on it. I would love to. Give you more goodies. I'd love to. But if I grow, that still works because then YouTube and or Rumble will help fill that gap. So that's why I bug you to either become a member, if you can, great, either here on YouTube or here on Rumble, either one. And also subscribe. Subscribe doesn't matter. Also, if you want to throw me some cash, please do so. A super chat goes right to the front. Rant me on Rumble goes right to the front. I take your comments right away. We start talking about it right away. I try to grab members to the best of my ability first, and then we keep going. So if you can, please do so. All right.
The government does not raise enough taxes to fund these expenditures. It does what anybody else would do. take on debt temporarily to live above its means.
Well, see, that's the one. See how quaint that is? Look at that national debt. See how quaint that is? You can tell this video is many years old. Right? So how many years old is this? That's 20. With 36 trillion, that's 20 trillion. That must be like 30 years ago. No, 4. I wish I was joking. That's 4 years ago. 16 trillion in 4 years. And he said, so quaint, you go into debt temporarily. Do you though? I mean, I guess if you look at temporary as until you default, then yes. Yeah, Phil picked it up right away, temporarily. Phil picked that right up. Yes, thank you for being a member, Phil. Picked it up right away. Yes, temporarily. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you keep believing that. Like 20. I wish it was just 20 trillion in debt. That'd be amazing. Let's hope one day, maybe years from now, but maybe hopefully not that many years from now, that all of a sudden Pete comes in and Pete's happily putting on national debt at 20 trillion. He's like, look, Larry, 20 trillion. We're winning. And sadly, at 20 trillion, he would be right. We would be winning because it's better than 36 trillion. So yes, temporarily. Yeah.
This is the massively oversimplified cycle of government fiscal policy in our modern economy.
Okay.
And it should make sense to everyone. If we stop paying taxes, the government either has to stop paying for services that keep society going, or it takes on more and more debt until it ends up going.
Why does he put a Greek flag out for debt? Yeah. Or hear me out. It finds another way of raising money. See? It could also find another way of raising money.
Bankrupt. So this is why taxes are levied. Simple enough. But there is more nuance to this argument.
Yes, there is.
Certain economic schools of thought, not to mention political ideologies, advocate for raising fewer tax dollars and spending less money. They're opposite.
What? Wait, whoa. I'm an American, so I don't know what this means. Is this English? Hold on. Raising less taxes and spending less. I don't know what that means. Hold on. Raising fewer tax dollars and spending less money. Is that English? I've never heard of such things. I'm an American. I have no idea what that means. I think it's a foreign language. He did the Greek flag because now he's speaking Greek, because I don't know what that means. I don't think any of us have ever seen this happen. Raising fewer tax dollars and spending less money. I think it's English. I don't know what it means.
Opposition will argue that raising more tax dollars and spending more money is the way to
go. I understand that. Raising more tax dollars and spending more money. Oh, I understand that completely. I'm an American. I get that. Okay, that's crystal clear to me. Boom. Got that one. 100%. Thank you for the super chat. Ray from nowhere. She says it right there. Thank you for the $5. No tax on tips. This issue literally had me marching in the streets happily. I would love no tax on tips. I would love that, because that would, what I like about that, Ray, is that once you start doing no tax on tips, everybody starts taking tips. That wasn't my salary. That was a very big tip. No taxes on that one, I guess. I love the idea. Love the idea.
Both of these sides will argue that their way is the right way to deliver the most overall prosperity to an economy. They can't both be right.
Correct. Only I'm right. Raise fewer taxes and spend less money, and then allow communities to start to be better. Yes. IC gets it. Yes, thank you. That colloquial phrase is not in the American English language. It is not. We don't know what that means. No idea. Yes, absolutely.
Well, in a sense, they can. So remember this for later. In either case, taxes will still exist. So now it's important to ask, why do people pay their taxes?
Why do they? That's a great question. Why do they?
Some people have made the argument that taxes are like paying a subscription to modern society. But let's be honest.
But that's funny, right? I do think people say that. That's true. They say things, they absolutely say that. But do they really believe it? Right? They say it. It's true. He's right. I've heard people say it. People do say it. Question is, do they believe it?
It's not out of some civic duty to keep your nation going, or even because you think you will benefit from government programs.
They'll say it, though.
I mean, come on.
No.
Let's be honest. The real reason is that if you don't pay your taxes, you go to prison. As far as motivation goes, this is about as much as most people need.
Agreed. Yes, I would agree. He is correct. That is enough. Most people will go, I don't want to go to prison. I will pay my taxes. I will pay my taxes. Late, but I'll pay mine.
So let's look at the alternatives. The United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Monaco, Brunei, these are all examples of national economies that operate without the need for income taxes.
There's several of them.
Prior to 1913, the USA did not have federal income taxes.
That's true. Think about that.
So this gives us an easy answer to the question of, do we need taxes? To which these countries would answer a resounding no.
We should stop the video there and done. There we go. Do we need taxes? No. Okay, guys, thanks. I'm kidding. But yes, yeah.
But this all comes with one big asterisk, or rather, two big asterisks.
Oh, two of them.
The first is that these countries do have taxes.
Correct.
They just don't have income taxes. When we explored the economy of Monaco, which is a nation famous for being a tax haven, we found that a majority of the government's revenue still came from taxation. In the case of Monaco, this was a value-added tax or a sales tax.
There we go. Now, I see that Nate is very hardcore on this. He says taxation's theft, all of it, all the time. It's even worse than that. If you really understand the income tax, it's an intergenerational Ponzi scheme that enslaves future generations to the debts accrued by today's generations. True on income tax. I'm not sure every tax is it all the time. I'm not sure. And the point I'll bring up here is, in this case, Nate, he's bringing it right now, Monaco. If you have a high VAT tax, right, basically a high sales tax, basically, is that really theft if it's heavily being used by mostly visitors or tourists who already know about it? Like, they have an option, right? You don't have to go to Monaco, right? You don't have to travel if you don't want to. You can stay home. But if you want to travel, you can choose to go to Monaco. And if you go to Monaco, they're going to give you a VAT tax, is that really theft? So I'm not sure I would say all the time. I think that's much of a gray area in that one, Nate, because in the case of Monaco's VAT tax, you have a choice. You can choose to not go to Monaco. You can choose to not travel, any of those things. Or you can choose when you get there to not buy much. I'm only going to buy certain things that I don't want to pay the VAT tax. So I think you can find a gray area depending upon the type of tax. If you're talking income tax, yes. I mean, clearly, yes, income tax. But I think there are other things, he's talking about this, that I think the area is more gray for those other areas.
This is ideal for these tourist nations because it generates government revenue from people just visiting the country, rather than income taxes, which require people to work in the country. Yes. Alternative taxes are a common feature for a lot of countries, and they have a lot of advantages.
See, there are some other ways of doing this, so I think they are. Michael says, thanks for being a member, Michael. EU forced austerity on Greece. Is that Syria? Oh, that's the guy. Yeah, walked away. Okay, they opened their borders to Middle East migrants. Yes. Okay, I remember that. Yes. Now I remember. That dude, right. Varoufakis. There we go. Got to get it right. So yes, absolutely. That's true. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't want to join the EU. They were worried that some nations would be forced, that would bring everybody else down. They were concerned about that. That was an issue. So yeah, absolutely. So, all righty. Let me keep going if I can.
Take Singapore, for example. It still has income taxes, but they are incredibly low. What it does instead is levy taxes on things that require government expenditure. Cars are the best example here. Roads and highways and traffic lights and bridges and tunnels are all funded by taxes, apart from the few toll roads. These are expensive, and not everyone gets the same use out of them. True. Someone who works from home and walks everywhere in a normal country is still going to have to pay for roads through their income taxes, even if they never use them. In Singapore, though, they wouldn't really need to. Income taxes are low, But
Nice idea.
instead, the government raises the money it needs by taxing the bejesus out of people that actually own cars.
Now, again, is that theft in that regard? You could see it that way, but you could also see it as you have a choice. If you live in a place like Singapore, and in the case of Singapore, it's a very walkable city state, right? People don't know. It's basically, it's a city state, right? And they have public transportation, and it is very walkable. So you don't have to have a car. There's in New York City. You don't have to have a car in New York City. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Public transit, my neighborhood's completely walkable. I mean, I walk to all of the things that I want are all walkable, from my accountant, who I will see soon, my accountant, to my store, to my barber, every place I want to, my local, my computer shop guy, every place I want to go is walkable. My bank is all walkable. So I don't have to have a car. So in a place like that, this seems like a fairer system, right? It may be expensive to have a car, but if only certain people are going to use the roads, why are you paying for it? Right? And I think more people will be happier with that, is my gut. I don't know if to be true, but I think more people will be happy with that because you're paying for what you're using. And if you don't want to own a car, you don't have to pay the rolls. You don't have to pay for the roads. So I think that will be a better way, if that makes sense. So yeah, Dave says you could walk, use public transportation, or pay a tax to drive. Yeah, it's kind of like he says it's a user fee. It kind of is. Is it still taxation? Yes. But is it a better way of doing it? I think, yeah, it's a better way, right? Nate says, is it voluntary? Then it's theft. Try to avoid it, and men with guns come and take what you owe or take you. Sales tax can be partially avoided. Yep. But food is not subject to sales tax because it's extortion, aka theft. Yeah, but I'm speaking specifically in this case about a place like Monaco, a city state like Monaco, right? In this case, Nate, you don't have to go at all if you don't want to. So it is voluntary, right? You're making a decision knowing what the value-added tax is, knowing that it's for tourists, knowing that, and you're going to say, yeah, I want to go. I want to see Monaco that bad that I will pay the tax. It kind of is voluntary at that point. You are not required to go to Monaco. You don't need to if you don't want to, right? It's like food or anything else. You can go your entire life never going to Monaco if you don't want to. But if you go, no, I really want to go. Okay, pay the VAT tax then. You really want to go. No worries. You can do that. So I would argue that these are better forms than something like an income tax, right? Plus, I'm not taxing the income. I'm taxing an action that you may take, right? That you have a choice to take. I think it's better. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's better. I'm open to being wrong.
Depending on the type of car, buying and registering a vehicle in Singapore can easily cost 5 times as much as it does in the United States. This gives the Singaporean government the revenue it needs to pay for these public goods. If you don't need or want to drive a car, no worries. You don't need to pay.
You don't got to pay.
In many ways, this is a really, really fair system.
Well, the other piece is that this works in this locality, right? Certain places in America, you don't have a car. I mean, you're really struggling. Like, you are really struggling. A place like Singapore, yeah, it works, right? In this case.
Get what you pay for. Beyond this, it helps ease congestion in this tiny nation because not many people are going to drive, given how expensive it is. However, this system is not without its problems.
Of course.
When a car costs as much as a house, many people are not going to be able to afford it. For some people, driving is just a necessity. They might be in an industry that requires driving. They might have disabilities that require.
Yeah, but in the case of an industry that requires driving, if you're in Singapore, then that's part of your pricing structure, right? So if you are in Singapore and that's the system, driving is that expensive, if you're an entrepreneur, you already know that before you started, right? You already know that it's going to cost you a bunch to do that, right? Or you know not to do that, either one. So I get what he's saying, but if you're in a driving field, the entire country is going to be set up for that because everyone has to pay that fee. Now, disability could be an issue, right? Hopefully there would be again, in my perfect world, there'd be a community answer for that, right? There would be a community answer. But in reality in Singapore, it's a government program.
Easy transport, Or they might live in a remote area with no easy access to public transportation. Remember this for later because it is very, very important. The arguments
Listen up,
back and
Andrew.
forth for this type of taxation are fascinating. You could
They
make a
are.
video about it. Oh, look, we did.
Yes.
But Singapore still has taxes, so it might be fascinating, but it's irrelevant. Instead, let's look at that second big asterisk.
It's irrelevant.
The other countries that get
BS.
away without charging taxes have some alternative form of revenue. More often than not, it's natural.
And that's my point. You can find other ways. What if you want to run a government has to have revenue. Okay, get that. Understood that? Makes total sense. It doesn't have to be all taxation or even taxation at all. Now, in the case of places like Saudi Arabia, they have a massive sovereign fund and the royal family owns everything. No requirement for taxes because the royal family is literally filthy rich. All the money of the country is owned by the royal family. So they have a responsibility to their subjects and they pay for everything. I'm not joking. Now, I'm not saying it's a better system than ours. I'm not saying I want a king. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is an example of another way of raising funds without taxation. And there are other ways too, and he's going to cover a couple of them.
Resources. By substituting tax revenue with oil revenue, these countries can still provide all of the amenities one would expect in a regular old tax-paying country.
Yes, and you do find that. The only example we have of this in America is Alaska. Alaska writes a check to its people every year, I think. I'm saying I don't live in Alaska, obviously, but I think it's every year based upon some percentage, whatever the formula is, of oil that they sell. So they get a cut. So couldn't we do something like that? I was talking about that when everyone was talking about the Ukraine war. Like, we're going to get these rare earth mineral deal. Oh, okay, I guess that's good. I'm not getting a cut. Why do I care, right? Now, to be forward, I'm not against the deal. If that deal ends the war, I'm in. Make the deal. No worries at all. Will some American companies make a bunch of cash? Yes. The military-industrial complex will make some cash. Will there be some American jobs from it? Yes. And good for those people who get those jobs. Good for them. But is America getting the rare earth minerals? No. Now, if you said America's going to take the rare earth minerals and sell them all, and now every American gets a cut, okay, they'll get a cut. Okay, then now we're getting something. So could you create something like that? You could, but America has not done that. That's not what America has done. And I'm not sure if it's a good or bad idea, to be very, very forward with you, depending on what resource you'll be talking about. The other thing is, the problem you have with that is once it is a government resource, the question becomes, does the government run it? And once that happens, you are just begging for corruption too. So yeah, I can't give you your cut, Nate. Why? Because government decided to give that money to some other country. So yeah, that's the problem.
Even places like Alaska do not need to charge state taxes. In fact, they go beyond this and disperse a share of this oil revenue amongst its residents of the state.
There we go. So they got $1,600 per individual in 2019. There we go. That's what they got. Not bad. I'd like a check for $1,600. I would like that, right? Doesn't mean I want to live in Alaska, but if I lived in Alaska, I would like a check for $1,600. It's nice. Now, could you make it to where you're getting paid a lot more? You could. In theory, this is what Andrew Yang was trying to achieve. His theory of his UBI wasn't the $1,000 he was going to give everybody every month, wasn't supposed to come from taxation. It was going to be some kind of freedom dividend or whatever he had mentioned. I forgot what the details of it was, but that was his concept. That what America would do to make money, right? We would actually be able to somehow give that money back to the people. I love the concept. I do. I don't know if it's real.
You could call this negative taxes or social welfare. It depends on your flavor of politics, I suppose.
Yep.
The problem here, of course, is that a country needs natural resources to substitute tax revenue with natural resource revenue. Another big problem is that this kind of is taxation. In theory, the natural resources of most countries
note he's looking at,
belong to the people of that country. Taking away natural resources to sell is no different from taking away cash. In both
Not wrong.
instances, a government is taking an asset away from the people to pay for public expenditures. Of course, people will feel direct taxation a lot more than natural resource sell-offs.
And that's the key. I think many people, right, many people would feel better about that. Whether it would give them a better outcome, I don't know. But I think they would definitely feel better about it, particularly if they got to check themselves. People love getting checks. I like getting checks. I'm not against getting checks. I like it. But yeah, I don't know if I'd feel any better. But I think a lot of people would probably feel better. Yes. That Liberty Lady says, thoughts on Dave Champion? That guy claims there is nothing in the Constitution that says you have to pay income tax. Hold on. I actually have his book. Literally have his book. So, yes. He sent it to me. I know, Dave. He sent it to me. Geez. Bad at it. If he's watching now, he's mad at me. He sent me this book like months ago and haven't finished it. I cracked it, but I couldn't finish it. It is a serious, this is a serious book. It's 400 pages. And it's about taxes. So, yes, I think Dave's brilliant. And he's probably right. So, yeah, probably right. Yes. Any case, thank you for that.
But it is still important to
You're like, of course you know Dave Champion. Yeah, it's funny.
consider for the sake of our question here. So maybe the problem here is the assumption that governments need revenue at all.
Oh, okay. This right now, if Pete's still watching and listening, is going to make him very angry. Because, of course, you have to talk about it. You need money? Just print it. What's wrong with that? Just print it. Every libertarian listening right now is like, rah! Yes, we all got PTSD now from this. But yes, just print it.
You have probably asked this question as a kid.
Yeah.
Why does the government not just print money to pay for everything it needs?
Here's the funny part. What he just said is you asked that as a kid. And if you look right now at the video he's showing, is a teacher talking to children. Why? Because you would think, only children would think, you could just print money on a magical money tree. No. There are tens of millions of Americans who actually think you can just print the money. Just print it. What's the problem? Just print it. They believe in MMT, which is modern monetary theory. That's what they believe. I call MMT the magical money tree. Just money grows on trees. And people honestly, I've had people on the show who honestly believe it. They are all about it. Like, yeah, no. See, the government puts money in and then higher taxes takes it out to make money more valuable. I'm not joking. That's a real thing. Real adults, people with like degrees and stuff, credentialed people believe that. And my response, if you ever heard me say it, is a similar one. I mean, which is the same one almost every time. I say something like this. Okay, I got it. So if the government can just print money, yes, it can. You say, why can it print it? Here's our logic. The logic is they can print money because we're the reserve currency. So people always want dollars because we're the reserve currency. Therefore, we can just keep printing money. And because people want it always, that means by default, it's valuable. I know you're saying that doesn't make any sense, Larry. I didn't say it makes sense. I said that's what they tell me. And I say, okay, I'm going to take that as true. Great. That's it. So how about every 10 years, the federal government just absorbs all consumer debt. Just take it all. We all get a mulligan. Take all of it, done. We get a mulligan. And they go, well, no, we can't do that. Why not? It doesn't matter. He can just print the money. Who cares? It's the money that we need. So the world needs our money. Let's just take it. And they go, well, no, because you have to worry about inflation. Inflation, wait a minute. No. You didn't say that. You told me that MMT, magical money tree. You can just do it. And they're like, well, but it's just, that's where it goes. It goes to that. MMT is utterly not true. MMT is not a real thing. That's why he has children in this video. That's why he said kids ask the question. However, I can guarantee you, if you are in any major city, you can find thousands of people who will defend that shit to the end. And when you get them on that, why don't we absorb all debt? They're like, but see, and I read this book and I saw this video and socialism, capitalism, bad. That's how that will end. Capitalism, bad. That it will end with that. That's how that argument ends. Give me money. It ends that way. Anyway, my point being, move on. Michael says, yes, debt jubilee. Why not? Let's do it. Michael, we could do every 5 in theory, but I like every 10. You can have some fun for 10 years and you gotta redo. Rebuild your credit, the whole deal. Redo. It's all fine. Everyone gets it every 10 years. I like it. There we go. Lindsay says, but you can't print your own money. Yes, that's not fair. You can't do that. That doesn't get with the magic money tree, lunatic. We can't all have a magic money tree. Greedy. Trump and Biden and those guys, they get the magic money tree. You don't. Greedy. So no. Rick says magic money theory. I like that too. Yep, absolutely. That also works. I love that. There we go. Nate says the dollar. People want it now until we inflate it too much. How much is too much? F around, find out. True. You're not wrong. Very true. I'm looking over at Rumble, and Sheridan says the teacher must be in a private school if he's teaching civics. Yes, if he is. Yes, he's not teaching math. Believe it or not, he's not teaching math, but it's fine. But yes, if it's yeah, it has to be a private school if he's teaching civics. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing that at all. Yes, 100%. So, all righty. Let's see. That takes care of that. That is good. All right. Let us continue if we can.
Now, we tend to scoff at this question and just say, cause inflation, which is not incorrect, but
yes, it's like very correct. Like very, very correct.
It's not the whole story. In reality, there is not much stopping a government like the US conjuring cash into existence to pay for everything it needs.
That's what it's doing. So this is 4 years ago, and he was thinking to himself, this guy, when he was doing it 4 or 5 years ago, when it was only 20 trillion, he was like, America's got to stop soon. He was thinking that. Silly man. He was thinking America's going to stop. Yeah, they can't go past like 30 trillion. They could never do that. Yeah, we can. And
logistically, this is what it already does. If Uncle Sam needs to write a check, he does so by snapping his fingers and hey presto, there's some money.
Now, the funny part is, I tell this story often because I love it so much. He says it like, yeah, of course. And if you're liberty-leaning or libertarian, you know this already, right? This is a thing that kind of like we all know, right? But the average American doesn't actually get this. And while, don't get me wrong, Trump is not being great to the debt at all. I get that. I'm not fooling myself. What I love about this, though, is this was the first campaign, major campaign, I would say, that actually had a chance of victory. That's actually talked about the debt. And you might go, but Larry, he's not going to fix it. I get that. I get it. I'm not fooling myself. And all of a sudden, Trump's going to fix the debt tomorrow. That'd be wonderful. I hope he does. And if he does, I'll give him great credit. But you and I both know it's not going to happen. All I'm saying is, at least we had somebody talk about it. RFK Jr. was the first person last year who was making mainstream impact, who was talking about the debt. He was talking about it. He wasn't going to solve it either. He was talking about it. He's the one who actually, if you remember, for those of you who are paying attention, he was at the Bitcoin conference talking about coming up with a way to actually back our money and have solid money backed by precious metals and cryptocurrency. That was RFK Jr. He was talking about that. Now, he didn't know which ones are which. And if you remember, I had our great libertarian economist, Michael Tremont, on, and he was talking about, how do you find the right crypto? How do you know? It could be very challenging to create, but you could create it. But you got to find a way to create it. What do you use? What do you not use? Yeah, but so what? We're talking about it. I'll take it. You got to talk about it before you can manifest it, make it real. And this is the story I'll tell you. This is probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I used to do a lot of work for city agencies, New York City agencies. I would train them on leadership, train them on marketing, train them different things, right? So it's public speaking. So I'm training them in a leadership course. And this is a classroom of about 25 people, give or take. Youngest is probably 30, oldest is probably 60. So somewhere between 30 and 60 in that area of age range. All of them are credentialed professors. All are credentialed professionals, every one of them. Some have college degrees, some have multiple college degrees, all have some form of credential from the city. These are agency workers. So all of them are credentialed professionals. All of them work for the city. We have a break. Now, they know I'm libertarian, but I didn't talk about it, right? I didn't bring it up, whatever. Didn't do that. Just unless it was a break and they asked. That was the rule. If it was a break and they asked, I could talk politics. Otherwise, Larry, do your job and shut up. I get it. I was getting paid. I did my job and I shut up. But it was a break. And during the break, they were all talking. And I'm doing my own thing, right? I'm at front of the class. And they're talking about, this is about 2008. And they're like, hey, you know what? I actually am so happy that we have a Fed. They saved us during the 2008 crash. The guy actually said that. I have cause. I'm like, look, shut up, Larry, get paid. Shut up, take your check. Shut up. And I did. I didn't say a word. But then he said, hey, Larry, you're into politics. That's right, isn't it? I was like, oh, no, you didn't. literally, he brought me in, right? He brought me in. I have witnesses. I did not start this. This was him. He asked the question. I went, oh, you guys know that the Fed is not a part of the government, right? Like, what? I'm like, yeah, Fed is not part of the government. Yeah. In fact, it's basically a private banking cartel. It's a private banking cartel. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I said, check it right now. Go on your phones. They had phones, right? I said, go on your phones, Google it right now. That's not true. None of them believed it. 20 people, educated, credentialed professionals who work for the government, city government, but still government, municipal government, New York City, didn't know, not one. Do it, Google. Oh, what? Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. I said, it just magically makes money. No, it doesn't. Yes, it just magically makes money. What it decides to make money, and there it is. They're like, that's not true. I said, you got your phone, Google it. They Google it right there. And like, oh my God. So yeah. So for this guy to just say it, I'm like, yes, validation. More and more people need to hear it. More and more people need to get it. So that's what I'm saying. Did I think that Trump was going to walk in and fix the Fed? No, I didn't. But the fact that he talked about it, and literally millions of people got to hear that, tens of millions got to hear, that's what I'm saying I'm okay with. That part I'm happy with, because that gets us one step closer. People get mad at me. Not people, libertarians, hardcore get mad at me when I say audit the Fed. No, we got to end it. I said, you don't understand. Let's get to audit first. People say, why? It's not good. I said, here's the reason. You can't just audit the Fed. What do you mean? It's not a government agency. So you can't just audit the Fed. And the fact that you would say to audit the Fed, and they would try to audit the Fed can say no. How do I know? The Fed already said no. Remember, they asked him. I forgot the guy. Anyway, the guy there. They asked him, they said, if Trump told you to step down, would you? He said, no, he's no authority over me. He said that to the press. Do you remember that? No. Why? He's not a government agent. The president can't make him step down. That's not a thing. He said no. I don't care what the president says. I'm a private company. I do what I want. And he's right. You can't just randomly audit a company. You have to have a reason. And then all of a sudden people go, wait a minute, you have to have a reason? Yeah. Yes, you have to have a reason. You have to have a reason. And that is why I'm so happy that talking about audit the Fed, because then people start to get it. And here's the best part. The press might actually say it, because you might think, well, the press knows, they're in on it. No, they're not. I speak to reporters often. You see me, I've been in the press. When I tell them, the reporters go, really? They don't know. Don't think because someone's on TV or someone writes something that they're all of a sudden super smart. I mean, some are, but that doesn't mean they're smart. They don't know that. They don't. So I went long on this because this matters so much. People should know this, and most still don't.
If you did this indefinitely, you would eventually introduce more and more and more money into the economy. Cash.
But no, that's not a MMT, magical money theory. We're good.
Is an asset like any other. Its value is determined by supply and demand. The only reason this gets confusing is that we normally express the value of an item as a nominal cash value. Outside of this, if you have more money being pumped into the economy, it will cause inflation.
Wait a minute. Magical Money Tree told me that's not true. How can this be true? Because it is. Now, I wanted to show this to people. A lot of people already know this. But the point is, this is not a libertarian, video. This is just a regular video. I put the link, by the way, in the description. And they're talking about this because it's real.
Because the supply rises, although it will do it slowly. What a country like this would need is a way to drive up demand for the currency to ensure that it stays in line with this.
See, we got to drop demand for the currency. That's what we need to do, Nate. See? Get with the program. And then it becomes magical. Okay, how do we make the magic happen? Show me.
Increase supply. The easiest way for a government to ensure that there is a consistent demand for its currency is to force the citizens of the nation to deliver a portion of this currency back to them at the end of every year as taxes.
Well, to be forward, and I want to be fair to the people who love taxes. Let me be fair. There is an advantage to taxes. Not one that I feel is worthy of taxes, but there is one, right? It's like if you get, if you get stabbed in the eye, the other eye, you'll see better. So I guess there's something good about it, but I'm not saying I'm going to be stabbed in the eye. My point being, there is an advantage to taxes, though. And that is, if an organization like governments or a government or multiple governments across the world all agree that this piece of paper has value, and the only way that you can avoid going to prison is to provide these governments with this piece of paper that they all agree has value, it does make commerce easier. See, I found a good thing. I found something nice. It does make commerce easier. Now, could you still have commerce? Of course you could. Could you create another form? Of course you could. It would just take more time and energy and culture to have this other thing being valuable. But yes, you could do it. This just is a very simple way of making it valuable. It's valuable. Why? If it's not, you go to jail. Oh, okay. It's valuable. So when you have the monopoly on force and can put people in prison, I can tell you that it's valuable. In fact, if I'm going overseas, it's valuable. No, it's not. I'll bomb you. Okay, it's valuable. Done. So through, basically threat, I can make the thing valuable. There's an advantage. See, Nate, now you love taxes. I've explained that you can be violent and horrible to people, and done. Nate now loves taxes. There we go.
This whole system of taxation and money creation is called modern monetary theory.
Yes.
Subscribers to this theory will argue that, in theory, a government, especially a government like the United States, can just keep on printing money. So long as they can find a way to ensure that people still demand the currency, they can create this money to pay for your roads, schools, and whatever else you want.
But they don't. But yes, in theory, I'll go back to that. In theory, they could use that money to pay for roads and stuff. I mean, they don't, because our schools are garbage and our roads are garbage. But in theory, they could also use that money to just line their own pockets, which they do, and give other countries money, which they do, and bomb people, which they do, and support the military-industrial complex, which they do. They can do that too. There's the problem. See, if they could only use that money for like schools and roads, most people would be okay with it. And you wouldn't have to spend so much, because it doesn't take that much to build schools and roads. It takes a lot to be at war for 75 years. It takes a lot to be at war for 75 years. So, yeah.
Actually maintaining that demand without taxation is the hard part. And of course,
that is the hard part.
If not done properly, you're going to get hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is straight up not a good time. So eventually this type of system is bound to become unstable.
Yes, it is. Yes. Eventually, this system that libertarians have been talking about since 1972, officially, since 1972, we've been talking about this. This is unstable. We've been saying it for a long time. I'm just happy that there's a regular video that just says it and that now people are talking about it. It's amazing.
That isn't a huge surprise to too many people.
Oh, no, it's a huge surprise.
So this is all not looking so great for our do we need
No.
taxes question. But so far, we have held on to the assumption that we actually need government expenditure, or for
See
that
that?
matter, governments at all.
Okay, libertarians, calm yourselves. You heard what you wanted to hear. Then you got super excited. You got all triggered. Let the man talk. We don't need government at all. Calm yourself.
What would happen if we let go of all of these assumptions?
What? All the bets are off, baby.
Anarcho-capitalism is an economic theory that advocates for the complete elimination of government influence in an economy. In such a system, everything is privately owned. There are no public roads, schools, parks, or hospitals. There aren't even things like social welfare or emergency services.
That's not true. That's not true. That part is not true. There's no government run that stuff, right? There's no government run social welfare or government run emergency services. There could still be emergency services and still social welfare. Of course there could be, right? The assumption that people make is if government doesn't do it, no one will do it. That's assumption number one. The second assumption being made is if you have that kind of environment, everyone will be selfish and hate everybody. In the examples that have happened throughout the world, that's not true. People still do help each other. People still do create their own worlds together. It still does happen. Now, to be forward, do I believe we're anywhere near this? No. We're nowhere near anarcho-capitalism. I mean, we're so far away from it. Should we be moving towards it? Yeah, we can get closer. I think we get closer. So, yeah, let me just make sure I get that back here. There's no public roads or schools.
There are no public roads, schools, parks, or hospitals. There aren't even things like social.
Now, there's where there aren't even things like public social welfare, public emergency services.
Welfare or emergency services. The idea of such a system is that private enterprise would replace these publicly provided goods, and the profit motive would encourage these services to become more competitive and therefore deliver a greater net value to society.
Now, people will always say, that's terrible. No, we can't do that. It's a bad idea. It would never work. Here's what I would ask you to consider. In almost every situation, when people get wealthy, what kind of system do they go to? A privatized system. Why? Why would you go to a privatized system? Why would you do that? Because you get better service. Because you get better value. That's the reason why, right? That's the reason why you would do such a thing, right? The wealthy people don't go to like Medicaid, Medicare doctors. They go to private doctors. Of course they do. They go to private schools. Of course they do. Why would they go to government schools? They don't. They have money. So why are we trying to act like this system doesn't work or like it's not good? If it was a bad system, why do wealthy do it? In every country, by the way. In every country. Why do they do it? Why?
Sounds kind of good, right? Well, the first thing it does is eliminate taxes. If there are no governments, there are no governments to raise taxes. So, mission accomplished, I guess. Beyond this,
yes,
it must be recognized that there are some legitimate advantages to such a system.
See, there are some. That's true, right? Look, again, could we get there now? No, right? If we tried to go that route now, we would go into a horrible chaos and then a horrible autocracy. That's what would happen now. Why? Because people don't know how to do it right now. We're not there.
Individual would only ever have to pay for something that they actually wanted or needed, and they could be relatively confident that they could be getting a good price for their purchase so long as there is still competition in this market. There are actually examples of society like this scattered throughout history, the most prominent of which were medieval European free cities. These were places operated by merchants and were ultimately run purely for the profits of the individuals making them up. The whole idea of purely unrestrained capitalism has some really interesting thought experiments.
It's
The
true.
first is that of disabilities. In a purely capitalistic society, someone who is born with or develops a disability is going to be less productive and therefore less economically valuable as an individual.
Now, hold on. I remember a society about, I don't know, about 80 years ago that looked as individuals who are disabled as less valuable. They weren't capitalistic. In fact, they were socialist. They were also kind of nationalistic. And they had a guy who had a funny mustache from Austria who ran that country. And when they found these people, they murdered them. That had nothing to do with anarcho-capitalism. That was someone who was socialist and nationalist and had a funny mustache from Austria. That guy, when he took over and he saw these people who he thought weren't good economically, he just murdered them. Sorry, he didn't personally do it. He ordered people to murder them. That's what he did. Is that what happens? I'm wondering, in those where there's like no government, basically, what example do we have in the world where there's no government, where we're making mass extinction of these people? I'm going to see. I'm trying to think of all the times when there was mass murder and there was no government. Right, never. Every single mass genocide, any of those, always run by governments. Whenever we were rounding people up and putting them into camps and murdering them, always governments. Always governments. Duke of Hex does make it. Yep. He did experiment on them first. Okay, true. So there were extra steps. Correct. Extra steps. Yes. Extra steps. So there we go. Yeah. This part isn't this is a myth that people made up.
Individual. It sounds horrible, but it's true. In extreme cases, they may not be able to make enough money to feed or clothe themselves.
Now, again, this is the straw man argument of anything anarcho-capitalism. The concept is everyone's on their own. Everybody, you still have family and friends and community. In fact, you have more family and friends and community. Why? Because there's no government. Right? Because there's no government. That's the point. With no government, you would by default have more community. That's how that works. Again, every single time. So why would you assume that all of a sudden, if some guy or gal couldn't take care of themselves, they would just die by themselves? Would they have no family and friends? Would they have no community? Would things like religion, morality, and ethics not exist all of a sudden? Right? In every single situation, even when those special socialists of the national type existed, there were still people who were hiding those other people who were going to camps. There were still people trying to stop that from happening, even in that society. I'm not sure.
So they would just die. A huge assumptive leap here is that even the most hardcore free market economists would see this as a negative outcome.
Yes, but not a realistic one. See, the thought here is his failure, right? His assumption is you're good or you do things because government tells you to. No. You pay taxes because government tells you to, but you can still do good things when government doesn't. And again, I went back to it. That special place I just talked about in the 30s in Central Europe with the funny mustache guy. There were people who the government said, don't hide those special chosen people. Don't hide them or I will kill you. And people still hid them. So people were still moral. People were still just and ethical, even though the government said, if you hide those chosen people, then you will be murdered. Or in the case if you were someone of stature, you'd be shipped off to the Russian front to be killed by the Russians, right? But whatever, you're gonna be punished. Did it anyway. So why, if they're free, right? When they're under tyranny, people are still moral and just and ethical. But now they're not, they're free. Why would they not be that? That's the flaw in his argument. Humans are still humans. They're still humans. I see. Yeah, it is. You know what I meant. Yes, you got it correctly. I see. Chosen. Those people, they were still being hidden, right? They were being hidden under penalty of going to a camp yourself or going to the Russian front or being executed. Still, people did it. Still. Sarah, thank you for the $5. I'm giving my coffee cash. Oh, thank you, Sarah. I have no coffee left. I've drank all my coffee. I drank all my coffee. I do have some water left, though. So I'll be finishing my water off today. I may not have any more coffee tonight. I might have some more. I drink a lot of coffee. Anyway, so yes, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Absolutely. So, all righty, let me keep going if I can.
So what are the alternatives? Well, insurance. Social Security is kind of like the price we pay to ensure that if we lose our job or get sick or injured, that we won't starve. An insurance company could provide this same service.
Sure,
you
could
insure yourself against getting injured or developing an illness or even having a child that requires constant care. What's more is that you could tailor this cover. If you are an incredibly wealthy person and you lose your job today, you are just not going to be able to support your lifestyle on Social Security checks. So even though you contributed more in taxes throughout your good years, you are going to be the same as everyone else in your bad years.
Well, that's assuming you don't have assets, right? If you're very wealthy, you probably have lots of assets. If you're very wealthy, that was his point, and you lose your job. If you're very wealthy, your job is just one thing you do, and you make money through many other ways. So if you lose your job, the world's not going to end because you're very wealthy. In fact, you'll probably still be fine. You find a job quickly, or you live off your savings, or you live off your investments. So if you're very wealthy, you'll be fine. It is someone who is not very wealthy, right? Someone who's middle class. They're the ones devastated. Those are the people who have the biggest chance of failure. They have to actually be able to be together with others and create communities so they can survive better, right? That's the goal. More people surviving together through communities.
Hypothetical anarcho-capitalist society, this kind of person would likely pay a higher insurance premium, but in return, if they lost their job, they could have elected for a policy that provides them with a higher payout figure. Beyond that, if you are happy to take the risk, you could just not pay the premiums and save the extra money, or really hope that you don't find yourself out of work.
Now, the problem with this concept is, and this is a tough spot, right? If you were to do that, then what happens when people think, I don't need insurance and I get hit by a bus, and now I'm disabled and I can't work anymore? I have a family, right? I've got kids, right? Then what happens? It's an issue, right? Which is why I'm saying we're nowhere near this. The country is nowhere near this. Now, you might go, but Larry, that happens to people and the government steps in. Yes, and Amish could step in too, and the community could step in too, but it doesn't, right? The example I'll give you is, it's going to sound odd, but it's the mob, right? When a mobster would go to prison, right, which is the equivalent of getting hit by a bus, go to prison X number of years, the family would take care of his family, literally by giving the family a check every month or every week, whatever. Here's money. You know, your guy was he was a mob guy and he did whatever. We're going to get him out when we can. Until then, you get a check, right? They would, cash. I'm sorry, it's the mob. Cash. Get cash every week or every month, whatever, right? Don't know if it's still being done, but that was a way of them doing it. That was literally a mob community. Yes. So could we create that? Sure, we could, but it doesn't exist right now. So if you were to go to this style, you have to make massive, and I mean massive, community changes. The communities are just not there. They aren't. Nate brings up, in every sector, the market is poised to provide. Not true. I wish that were true. That is not true, Nate. Government has absolutely stifled, absolutely held back and controlled so much of the market that the market is not poised. It has to relearn, and the government has to open it up again. And that's my issue, right? You put the minute government is abolished, the market steps in and provide. Utica Club Pilsner taught us that in a prohibition. Dude, that was 100 years ago. Or was it 90 years ago? 90 years ago. That was 90 years ago, dude. Yes, 90 years ago, we had more community. True. 90 years ago, we didn't have Social Security. True. 90 years ago, we still had, literally, we had clubs that kept people together. We had mutual aid societies. We had those. Communities did take care. We had people on farmlands who would go back to their family farm. That was the thing, right? If you couldn't make it in the city, got injured in the city, you go back to your family farm. Your family would take care of you. Yes, we had all those things. We don't have those now. The market was poised. It isn't now. And that is my entire point. We have to get our communities back to that point. They are not there. They're not there.
Same kind of private sector switcheroo can be done with almost anything that a modern government provides.
True.
This is similar in many ways to the specific expense allocation we saw in Singapore earlier, just dialed all the way up to the extreme.
Yep.
Private everything. Toll roads, private schools, private hospital.
Literally, the wealthy use private schools and private hospitals. They do.
Everything is for sale. This all starts to run into some problems, though, with indiscriminate goods.
It's a problem. Okay. Johnson, thank you for the $5, my friend. I like Sarah's idea, Larry's coffee fund. Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate that. Every little bit counts. It does matter tremendously. I'm trying to provide to the best of my ability, interesting, educational, I hope, and then intriguing, I hope. I hope people are enjoying it, seeing some stuff behind the scenes, understanding how things, go. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's great. Thank you.
This is a street lamp. They cost about $2,000 on average to erect, and they consume about $100 per year in electricity to keep going.
Okay.
Beyond that, there are maintenance costs and a few other incidental expenses. All in, they are not a cheap item.
True.
Chances are most of us take street lamps completely for granted.
We
but
do.
They
That's
do
true.
serve a really important purpose. They
Of course.
illuminate otherwise dark streets, providing safety to cars and pedestrians navigating the area at night. But it would be really hard to provide a street lamp in a purely profit-driven society. You
Why?
can't really stop someone from basking in the light of a street lamp. And because of that, it's hard to charge someone money to provide this service.
Okay, he's utterly wrong here. Completely wrong. Because people would want to get back and forth the streets. They would want you to get to work. They would want you to get to the mall if you're going to buy something. They would want to take their truck to your home. They could drop things off, right? They would want all of those things. Of course they would. They would want all of those things. So someone would buy. They wouldn't buy a street lamp. That's true, right? What would happen? There'd be company or companies. You see it already, right? There would literally be chambers of commerce, because we already have the chambers of commerce. Used to be relatively popular. They're not very popular now. They're very powerful now, but it used to be very powerful. So a chamber of commerce gets together in a neighborhood and goes, we need people to be able to get to work, or we need our trucks to be able to get to place X, Y, and Z. What should we do? Let's fix the roads, make them nice and wide for our trucks, and let's put up some streetlights. That's what would happen. And they would then hire a company to go do that, right? And he says, well, maintenance. They would pay a maintenance fee. Of course they would. Who would we pay for it? Yes. You don't have to have toll roads for that. Not required. It'd be paid for by two separate ways. One, there'd be dues that the companies would pay to be part of the Chamber of Commerce, right? And there'd be some advantage to being a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Could you be on the road without being a Chamber of Commerce? Yeah, you could, of course. It's a road, of course. You'd be able to be on it if you want to. Of course you would. Because the community would accept that. There's no way, particularly with the way we are now, there's no way a community would say, you're going to make that road and we can't be on it. The backlash would be impossible. So they'd do it. What would be the difference, though? You would get a specific benefit in commerce if you were a member of that commerce. They'd be like guilds and such. That's what would happen in this case. Now, I'm not saying it's a better system, but the concept of there'd be no street lamps. This is the part that I want to make sure that we understand. It's not that there wouldn't be any street lights. Of course there would be. Who's going to pay for the roads? I don't know. We could easily have the Chamber of Commerce do it, or a company would sponsor the roads. We do it now, right? A company sponsors cleaning the roads, and they have the name on something. So they put the name on a road. I don't like names being on roads. You're not paying for it. Be quiet. It's a better road. Well, the roads will be broken because they won't care. I get that all the time. It's profit. They won't care. Of course they care, because if they have to fix the roads, it'll be better. Why? Because they don't want to wreck their trucks. How do I know this to be true? Because remember what company was actually fixing the roads? Pizza Hut. No, I'm sorry, not Pizza. Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza. I'm not joking. Domino's Pizza was going out and fixing the roads. Why? Because they didn't want their cars being trashed because the roads were so bad. The government did a terrible job of it. So Domino's Pizza paid out of their own pocket to fix the roads. I'm not joking. Domino's fixed the roads better than the government. Why? Because they care about profit. The concept that because it's profit makes it bad is silly. Do you work for free? Do you just go to your job and do it and not get paid? Oh, you get paid. Huh, interesting. Does that mean because you get paid, you're bad at your job? That's what they're saying. Because it's profit, it's bad. Well, you go to work and you get a paycheck. So that means it's bad. You're bad at your job now because you get paid for it. That's insanely stupid. Now, you might be bad at your job. I don't know. You might be a terrible employee. I don't know. But it's not because you get paid. You might be great at your job. It's not because you get paid. You either are good at your job or you're not, and you get paid, or you won't be at your job. So that's profit, isn't it? Why is when a company wants profit, it's by default bad? But when an individual wants profit, it's by default good. It's because big is bad and little guy is good by default. This is ideological. He's falling for that. This is all incorrect. Of course, there will still be roads. Of course, there would still be traffic lights. Of course, there'll still be fixed. In fact, it will be better. Of course, it will still exist. No doubt. Right now, the roads are broken. Right now, our infrastructure is garbage. Right now, we actually have people collapse, bridges collapse. Right now, we have that. I would argue we'd have less of that because now when a bridge collapses, whatever, now we do a memorial and 5 guys show up and do a press conference and go, we're going to get you to the bottom of this. And then they make some stupid rules and then they rebuild it in 7 years for 14 times the price. That's what we do now. But imagine if it was now sponsored by whatever, Pepsi, or was sponsored by, I don't know, Google, whatever. That bridge is not collapsing. They're going to make sure it doesn't collapse because they look bad. And it's going to get fixed real fast because they're going to pay for it. And they're going to fix it real fast. They're not going to go through all the garbage the government goes through. They're not going to have to all the kickbacks. It's going to be done. So, yes, this is untrue what he's saying. It's not real. And by the way, there's no example of what he's saying where it fails. There's tons of examples of where we just create roads. We make them all the time. That's what we do. Yes. So anyway. Jay, thank you, my friend. Larry, how much for a New York City cup of coffee? Well, it depends on where you are. Low end, about $3, 2 something. Low end. High end, about 6. So somewhere between 2 something and $6. So I'd say probably in between the two, between 3 and 6 now, about $4.50. Probably is average. I guess. $4.50. Probably about average in New York City. In that area. But you can get a cheap cup of coffee, $2. You can. 2 something. $2 you can. Certain places you probably can still get them for $1, but yeah. So probably somewhere between 2 something and $6 in that area. If you want them special coffees, I want the blah 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 blah, the list of stuff, right? With this milk and that milk and frap, and that's like $10 easy. That's easy $10. I don't get those. I drink straight coffee. That's just me. Straight coffee with some kind of fake sugar in it, usually some kind of sweetener, but not sugar because keto's magic. We've covered this, Dave. Keto's magic. Yes, there we go. All right. Phil says the government buys votes. It's not greed. See that? Yes, correct. Yes.
Why would I pay for something if you can't stop me taking it for free?
Okay. It's called advertising. It's called advertising, right? It's called advertising. Okay. By the way, he's on YouTube. It's free. Do people pay for it? Yes, all the time, right? People pay that, whatever that thing is. They pay what I have it. You pay where you don't get ads. I forgot what it's called. Whatever, premium, whatever, YouTube premium. People pay for it all the time because they don't want ads, or they get ads. He's on the platform that proves him wrong, and he's like, why would they do it? Dude, you're on it now. Like, you are on it now. And people pay for it, literally.
Because there is no profit motive, there is no product, which means that this society...
He just made that up. He just made that up. Of course, it's a profit motive, right? But not just that. Just because you create an environment, and this is where socialists who are hardcore anti-capitalism get it wrong. The assumption is if there is a profit motive, by default, everyone is greedy. Now, I'll say it again. Not everyone. Most people have some type of job, right? Most people do. If someone has a job, that's the profit motive. So does that mean everybody's greedy? If that's true, does it matter whether it's capitalist, whether it's anarcho-capitalism, whether it's socialism? You're going to have a job, you're going to be greedy, right? No, it doesn't mean you're going to be greedy. There's greedy people and there's greedy companies and greedy governments. There's greed everything. Doesn't matter what system you have in that regard. There's greed everywhere. So yeah, it's silly. That whole concept is just, none of that makes sense. That is assuming that the second you take government away, everyone becomes greedy. Okay, we have government. Everybody's greedy. Doesn't change, right? It doesn't change. Yes. So anyway, let me keep going here. Phil says, YouTube has crazy amounts of infrastructure and it's mostly sustained by advertising. Correct. Literally. Yes. Duke says, I have premium, bets $10 a percent. Correct. So do I. Yes. So I'm paying for it and they can't stop me from taking it for free, can they? There we go. So yes, literally, I don't know what it is. Missy says, she says, keto is magic. Larry Sharpe, probably. Not probably. Truly. Yes. Because keto is magic. Missy, we've covered this. Keto is magic. It is. That's how it works. So yes. Morgan, great point. There's profit in data collection. Yes. Matt says, don't know if I can trust someone who drinks coffee with just sugar and no cream. Didn't say I had no cream. And not sugar. Liberty Lady asks, what type of sweetener goes in Larry's coffee? Stevia extract. Usually stevia. Yes. Usually stevia. Yes. But if I don't have it, I will do something else. Just not sugar. Too many carbs and sugar. So Dave says, looked it up. Street carts and bodegas, 150. Yes, you can get some places like street carts and stuff, 150, but usually it's two something. Yes. Boutique coffee, 3 to 5. Average cost in New York City, $1 to $5. It's not 1 to 5. That's one. Okay, 1 to 5 means 3, but you just said shops 3 to 5. I said 450. 3 to 5, $4. Yeah, $4 is probably more average. $4, $4.50. Yeah, that's more like it. So yes, there we go. Alrighty.
You may have to go without the service that provides a direct, tangible benefit.
He's made that up. It's just not true, right? A business wants to put everything it possibly can to make things as efficient as it can be. That's what it does. And if it requires lights, there'll be lights. It also wants to make the people happy so they can come to the store. Of course. He's just made that up. It's just not true. So Claudia says, do you put coconut oil in your coffee? Sometimes. MCT oil. Sometimes I do. Depends upon the day. If I'm having some other type of additive in my coffee, I won't always, but sometimes I will put MCT oil or coconut oil in my coffee. I do sometimes. MCT oil, for those who don't know, helps keep you in ketosis. So yes, and that's coconut oil. Absolutely.
The same thing is true on a larger scale with things like emergency services and military protection. A private military may be employed to protect the assets of an individual in an area, but in doing so, they are indirectly protecting the assets of everybody else in that area. Therefore, by the same logic, nobody would want to foot the bill to pay for it.
Yes, but your logic is flawed. You are correct. By your same flawed logic that has never been true, and there is no evidence of and no examples of, by that logic, you would be correct. By that logic that is utterly and completely flawed, you're correct.
Would not be provided. This gets even worse when you consider the other type of indiscriminate good, the bad type. Just the same as there is no way to prevent an individual basking in the light of a street lamp, there is no way for an individual to prevent themselves being impacted by negative externalities. In this type of society, people are driven by profits exclusively.
Okay, that's not true. He's making this up. Human beings are still human beings. The amount of profit you are driven by an individual is the same, regardless of what system you're in. So if you're in a socialist system, you still care, to Phil's point, dollar bill, y'all, right? That's correct, right? If that's what you care about, you still care about that. Whether you're an anarcho-capitalist, whether you're in whatever society, hasn't changed. And you will still love people, and you will still hate people, and you will still have family, and you will still have friends, and you will still have religion, or you will still have your own ethics. These things don't go away because you make your system anarcho-capitalist. This is what's wrong. This is where he's utterly false. It's not true. It's not how it works. It's not how it works.
Many profit-generating industries produce a lot of pollution.
Okay.
In a world like ours, with regulatory bodies, there is some level of control around this. We limit...
No. Okay. RFK Jr. is literally the example of this. Literally the example of this. We had all those controls, and the Hudson River was basically a dumping ground here in New York State. I'm not making this up. That's true. He created Riverkeepers as a private organization that didn't care about profit. I'm not joking. That actually happened. He is directly responsible for cleaning up the Hudson River. Directly responsible for cleaning up the Hudson River. We had all these regulatory bodies, but it was the private sector that cleaned up the Hudson River. I'm not making that up. That's true. Do your own homework if you think I'm making it up. Look at Riverkeepers. It's true. They've made more Riverkeepers across the country because of this. That's literally RFK Jr. What he's saying is demonstrably wrong, clearly wrong. Why, if you're anarcho-capitalist, would it be okay? Why would you pollute the river? Right? If there's, you know what actually would happen? The fishermen, which they would have done in anarcho, they would have gone to the factory and said, "Stop it. We don't want to. We're going to physically shoot you." That's what would have happened. I'm not joking. We're going to just come here and we're just going to, it's going to be a war here. That's what would have happened. They'd be like, "We don't want that. And we're going to tell everybody not to buy your stuff." And we're going to, yes, that's what would have happened if it was this anarcho-capitalist thing. Things don't all of a sudden change. They would create their own type of what is right and what is wrong. Why? Because people still want that. This concept of if there's no government, then there's no regulation is silly. I'll give you the perfect example I can possibly give you. Happening right now. Health food stores. I bring it up constantly and I'll bring it up again. Health food stores. Stores where people sell healthy food, local stores, those type of grocery stores, the farm to table type places like that. The vast majority of products in those stores are not regulated by the FDA. Vast majority. Where are all the deaths from health food stores? There are none. Not a thing. It's not a thing. The FDA has killed and maimed far more Americans with any one product than every single product in every single health food store throughout the entire country in the history of time. Not even close. Far more. So these regulatory bodies are responsible for far more death. And it's not even close in any given year by magnitudes. Where's all those health food stores? Well, no one is checking them. No. They have created, if you go to a health food store, they tell you literally who has inspected or checked their stuff. They will tell you. It's third party groups that check it and say, we say it's correct. A good example, if you happen to be kosher, if any of you keep kosher, is that you circled, right? Not new. Is it? Yeah, you. Yes, that you circled. Orthodox Union. I think it's Orthodox Union. Orthodox Union checks that things are kosher. There's like two of them. You and then something else, right? There's no law on what's kosher. There's no law, right? But people trust these, and some people trust one, some people trust the other. These places, they create kosher food that people trust and believe in. If you don't care about kosher, you probably don't care. But I live in New York City. I have a lot of Jewish friends. Some of them keep kosher, and they care about that. So they look for the symbol that says, okay, this is kosher. I want to eat that. Okay, they eat that. Good for them. Back in the day, before we had everything being made in China, we had Underwriters Laboratory, UL. When people used to buy radios, and people used to buy CD players and such, and record players and such. Where were all the explosions of all the record players? There weren't any. That wasn't government run. There are examples about that. There are examples, right? Morgan says, well, there is a law. True, not a government law. Thank you, Morgan. I'll correct myself. There's no government law. There we go. So yeah. So really, what he's saying is utterly untrue, and it's very common. People believe it, and there's literally no example. It's demonstrably proven wrong. So we'll make sure that's clear.
Where factories and power stations can be set up, and also control what kind of pollution they can leak out into the environment. If these regulatory bodies didn't exist, well, then it would potentially be down to private militaries to regulate and enforce these types of...
Yes! Yes. So let me ask you, if I got a factory there, if he's right, and he got a factory there and he's pumping crap into the water and the fish are dying, and I got 200 fishermen who can't make a living anymore, and they have cash, and they have firearms, how long are you going to be polluting? Not long. Not long. Your pollution going to stop real soon. One way or the other. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being realistic, right? I'm going to be realistic about this. He's making this up. It's not true.
Externalities. Very quickly, you arrive at an outcome where rich people just declare war on things to get their way, which is a real dicey reality to be living in.
Okay. All right. Theoretically, I guess that's true, but you'd have to show me how that would happen in America. That we would just, okay, if you're saying rich people just do things, that's now. That's today. That's now, right? Rich people run everything now, today. And we're nowhere near anarcho-capital. We're nowhere near that. We are heavily government run. And they do it now. This dystopian future he speaks about is today.
A solution to all of this is to set up communities that address the problems of these indiscriminate goods.
True.
It's hypothetically possible that a company could establish an area where people could live separately from negative externalities and be provided with things like street lamps.
It's not theoretical. It happens. You ever heard of an HOA? It literally happens. It literally happens.
Residents of this city would have to pay a subscription, but they get the benefit of having a lot.
It's called a gated community. In theory, this insane concept of what could, I don't know, what's just the theory we can make. It's happening now. What's
this stuff sorted out by default? This is also a way to ensure that everyone is chipping in for a military, which would keep this area safe and secure. And in the event that someone didn't pay their subscription, they would also be responsible for forcibly removing them from the area. But if you haven't realized by now, this company is basically just a government with taxes.
Yes, but it's voluntary. There's the difference. He's right, but it's voluntary. That's the difference. Phil, thank you for the $5, my friend. Hoosick Falls had a PFOA poison wall, had PFOA poison wells. The EC covered up. I'm not surprised. It was a lawsuit that helped locals using property rights. Regulators sidestep property rights. Correct. Government always sidesteps property rights. Constantly. Yes. Constantly. Yes. Thank you, Phil, for that. And we think like, well, government will help the little guy. When? RFK Jr. helped the little guy more than the government did, and he wasn't government then. Now he is. But he wasn't then. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So, all right. I'm looking over on Rumble now, and I see. All righty. Straight Ann says, my hospital fixed some of the bankrupt city's roads to provide patients and staff. Yes, in 2019. Yes. This happened. There's evidence of it happening already. And he's acting like it'll never happen. It's already there. He goes on to say, check out the history of Welsh, W-E-L-C. Is that Welsh or Welch? West Virginia. Rich people at war to do what they want against workers. A bloody war indeed. Well, there we go. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, all righty. Grab some more of these if I can.
More steps. Anarcho-capitalism is an amazing theory to explore, but most of the time you manage to work your way back to the status quo.
But it's voluntary. See, that's the issue. The big difference, the massive difference, to Nate's point, if I want to pay for a gated community, it's no longer theft because I'm voluntarily paying, right? What makes it not a crime is consent. If I'm like, I like this gated community, I want to pay money to live here. Okay, that's not theft. I would like these people to protect me. Here's money. That's not theft. That's great. So yes, you do want it coming back, but, huge but, it's consensual. It is voluntary. Big difference.
The truth is that most products and services are best delivered by corporations with a profit motive. The same
True.
way that there are products and services best delivered by governments simply looking to retain power.
Okay, you did not show me that. I did not see that. I did not see that. He made that last part up. If someone saw it, please tell me in the comments if somebody saw somehow government does better trying to retain power with something. Now, there are certain things government does well, right? I mean, well, if you ever say to yourself, I really want to just mass bomb people, you can't be government. A private corporation is not going to do it as well. It's not, because people think about stuff. No. You have to have government's going to be better at that. Government, it's particularly if it's indiscriminate, like you don't want to pinpoint, you just want like lots of people killed. Government's great at that. You just say, I want to lock a lot of people up in prisons. Yeah, like just indiscriminate, lots of people. I'm going to lock a lot of people up in prison, like just like millions. Government's your answer. Like that's true. Like if you want those things, government's great. I mean, yeah. Or if you say, I really want to like waste money and make it look like I'm doing something. I mean, it's tough to beat government on that one. Government's like number one at that, right? So I guess if you're saying I want any of those things, then yes, government's great. But I've never said to myself, I want to like bomb people, lots of them indiscriminately. I want to find righteous sounding ways to murder millions. I've never said that. But if I did want that, I mean, he's right. Tough to beat government if that's what you wanted. I want to oppress and arrest people and jail people, hopefully indiscriminately, but just lots of them. And I want to sound righteous, like that I'm doing a good thing when I do it. You really can't beat government for those. Like those two, government's really good at. But he didn't mention those. That's me mentioning those. And I hope none of you want those things. But if you do, I mean, if you do, it's tough to beat government for that. It's tough.
The exact place to draw the line between businesses and government services is the real debate, but it almost certainly does not lie at either extreme of the scale. This is one of those things that I'm expecting some pushback on. There are passionate advocates for a totally free market. So I put it on you. How would you structure the economy of a perfect society?
I've already expressed it more than once. Yes. I hope you guys enjoyed that piece. I thought it was fun. Phil says the problem of anarcho-capitalism is you might get a government. Correct. You might get a voluntary government. Damn it. I would hate that to happen. I would hate to have a government that I could opt out of. That would be terrible. I would hate that. When I could go, I don't like this anymore. I'm going someplace else. That'd be, wow. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Morgan says, question, and I'm sure it's a common discussion. What happens with social services in libertarian society? Privatize the police. Look, I'm gonna cover two pieces to this idea of social services in libertarian society. One, Morgan, we are nowhere near libertarian society. Not even close. People say all the time, the libertarians control nothing. Anything that you're mad about right now, whatever you're mad about, whatever you don't like about government, whatever you don't like about, the Democrats or Republicans, whatever laws you think are unfair or wrong, here's what I can tell you for sure. Libertarians have nothing to do with it. We don't run anything. We did at one point have a congressman. That was Justin Amash for about a year. We had one congressman for about a year in the 53 years we've been around. So we're not responsible for anything. We did have a couple of assemblymen here or there. Recently, one in Wyoming. We had one. Recently. But that's it. We don't run anything. So there is no way that that's not a thing. So to be clear. If we're to move more towards a libertarian society, social services, again, we're very far away from that. It would take decades, Morgan, for us to go there. But let's assume we do. Let's assume it's decades from now and we've moved towards libertarian society. If that were true, social services would be taken up by local communities. That's how that would work. People still fall. People still get unlucky. People still make mistakes. People still have problems either from their own mistakes or from bad luck or any combination. Of course, that will still happen. So we will have to take care of those people at a community level. My answer, if I talked about it earlier, was if it's local and people are trying to help locally, you will find they will care about the local communities and they'll want to give back and pay it forward. Privatize the police. We have it now. We do. right? We have it now. There are private police forces throughout the entire country. We have lots of them. That's not crazy. Of course we do. And the wealthy have private security, right? And all the wealthiest people, all that private security. It's happening now. It's not crazy. Why would it be crazy? You would still require it. Wouldn't change. So yes, of course it would be that way, right? I go back to what I always say. I never forget when we were talking, this was a TYT, when Javier Milei took over Argentina and he was getting rid of all the government agencies. And TYT was Anna and Cenk are going crazy. He got rid of the Department of Transportation. You don't want transportation? Like, if you don't have a Department of Transportation, there's no transportation. He got rid of it. Did the trucks go away? Did the cars go away? Of course not. Is there a huge, massive amount of accidents now in Argentina? No. It's not a thing. And this is his point that he was making up. So I hope I answered your question at least. So let me grab it if I could. This is Duke. Thank you, Duke of Hex. $5. Thank you, my friend. Anarcho-capitalism cannot contain the extremities of human nature. Once central government is gone, modern-day Genghis Khan will pop up. Maybe. It depends upon the societies, right? If you have strong communities, I'm not sure that's true. Why do I say that? Think about America today. And I use America because that's the country that I live in, right? If all of a sudden the government began to fail, if there was time to build communities, you're right. If that happens today, overnight, you're correct, right? And I say this, the reason why I am not for dismantling the government right away is I don't think that Nate is correct. And he says the private sector is ready to do this. I don't think it is. Now, look, I hope I'm wrong and I hope Nate's correct. I don't think Nate's correct. I think we have broken the backs of our communities. And I think that the lockdowns from 2020 showed that to be true. I think we've broken the back of so many of our small businesses. I think the lockdowns of 2020 showed that to be true also, that they're not ready to do it. Our communities are not prepared. If we prepared them, and this was done over time, I think that a modern day Genghis Khan couldn't pop up because he'd be put down, right? That's what I think. Now, I could be wrong. Now, you're totally correct. If we got rid of our governments like, done, we would panic and we would beg. Not only would he pop up, we would beg for him. And I don't mean me, obviously, but I mean as Americans, we would beg for a strong man. When people are worried and don't have answers or hope, they beg for a strong man, right? And yes, you're correct. But again, if we had prepared our communities, then I would say no. So that's my caveat. That's my caveat. So Andrew knows it. He says localism is where it's at. True. Yes. All right. Straight Ann over on Rumble says more coffee fund. Good show. Thank you for the $4, my friend. I do appreciate that. Yes. Everyone is so, I'm so happy. I'm going to have a lot of coffee. I'm going to get so much coffee. I'm going to be up all night now. It's your fault. I'm up all night. That's fine. It's all good. I appreciate it. So yeah, so I will grab some more of these if I can. I think I covered that piece. Dave says, Larry, isn't the gated community just another term for HOA? Yeah, it kind of is. And again, if you have a way for people to have freedom to move around, it's a much more better answer. If it makes any sense. It's a much better answer than we have now, right? It's better. So Nate says, range wars aren't the go-to solution. Judge Judy is a private arbitrator. The issue is property rights. Respect legitimately acquired property. The EPA and government judges often don't care. True. That's accurate. And that's the problem, right? In theory, government should be, it's not. Talking theory. In theory, what government should be doing and what our Constitution said it's supposed to do is protect the rights of the individual. That's what it's supposed to do. It doesn't do that. If we had a government that did that, a lot of people would be satisfied with our government. They'd be satisfied. They might not like it, but they'd be satisfied. But to your point, Nate, that's not what it does. It pushes the system itself, right? It perpetuates itself. So yes. Peter, thank you for being a member. Larry, to answer the private/public police issue, is Brinks Armored Security a private organization or a public organization? Do you mean like a public company? I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't know if Brinks is a public company. I've never checked. Maybe. Does Brinks have an umbrella company that owns it? I actually don't know. Good question. I could look it up, I guess. I don't know if they're a public company. I'm going to look. I'm actually not sure. Is Brinks is I'm just going to literally ask Google. It is a public company. It is. It's on the stock exchange. It is. So yes, so I guess it is a public company, I guess. So yes, was that your answer? I don't know what you were trying. I'm not sure I got your question. I'm not sure what I got your question. Are you trying to say, should people use Brinks as a private security? I think sure, if you want to. I'm not sure where you're going with this, Peter. If you could qualify. Dave says, Larry, a strong man and people looking for hope is how Italy and Mussolini got. Yes, correct. Yes, absolutely true. Looking for a strong man is and looking for hope is exactly how Italy got Mussolini and Germany got you know who. Yes, 100%. Yes, absolutely true. So, alrighty. Dave says Brinks is not a government agency. True, it is not. But it's is that what he meant? Okay, yeah. That's what he meant. Okay, yeah. So you could use it. Yeah. Rick says only an ethical and moral people can be free. Yes, but to be forward, Rick, I think the Genghis Khan point is a valid point. I think Genghis Khans would pop up. So you're always going to find the sociopath who wants to run everything or thinks they're smarter than you or thinks they can control everything. You're going to find that either way. The point is, will they be put down or not? And if you have a bunch of communities that are free, that want to remain free, then you will find too many of those communities will be free and they won't want the strong man and they will put down the strong man, right? That's the issue, right? You would see that would be what would happen. So yes, guys, I'm going to ask you if you could please click the button that is like. I haven't asked you in a while. It does matter. Lima, India, Kilo, Charlie. Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. Sorry. I do want you to click that button. It does matter. We have to make sure that this is growing so more people see this. It does matter completely. If you have not shared this, please do so. Now, if you are watching this and it's not live, so it's already done, you're watching it later on and it's not live, once this video is over, click on another video right away. Click on something on the channel right away and just you can walk away if you want. I don't care, but click on something. You know who likes that? Mr. Rhythm. Yes, Al Gore. Rhythm. He likes that. So click right away. Not just that. Once you are done, once this is over, please come back and comment on this. Why? Because he likes that too. He loves comments after the live is over. And he also loves when it's not live, when you're done, to watch another video. Just put like 5-10 minutes in. Just watch something else. I don't care what it is. Put it on from this channel and watch it. It does matter. It helps everything move forward. If you can do that, I would really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to ask you if you could, what do you think is the biggest question or worry that people have with a more libertarian, more liberty-leaning government or society? What do you think is the biggest issue or biggest question that people have with a more liberty-leaning society or government? I will be on tomorrow. I will see you all very soon.